Well, let's speak now to former member of the Israeli parliament, Dr. Einat Wilf. Very good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Can you just bring us up to date, really, on what has last night been for you? How has it been?
The truth is that we are still processing what's happening, what's happened. It's been a week now since the greatest massacre Jews since the Holocaust. The stories are beginning to emerge, the horrific brutality, the glee. We're going from funeral to funeral. People are beginning to deal with the loss of entire families. You know, during Holocaust Remembrance Days, when we heard of people whose entire families we lost in the Holocaust, I remember thinking, how is that even happening? How do you deal with it? And this is what our days and nights are like. This is now morning. The morning is the moment that we all wake up, and there's a split second where we ask, is this really happening? This really happened? This was done? And this is what our days are like. And the sense is that so much of the conversation, conflict, terrorism, Gaza war is stuck in the world of yesterday. Something happened that turns history on its axis, and the future will have to be very, very different from the past.
Can I ask you, Dr. Wilf, I mean, in the midst of this horror, absolute horror, how do you even begin to look towards tomorrow? How do you even begin to try to move on from these decades of history here?
This is the most difficult thing facing us, how to move on. How do we build a different future? In many ways, the only ability to think about a future is the one that I take from what happened to Nazi Germany, what happened to Imperial Japan. Those countries, those ideologies, more important, were completely defeated. There was unconditional surrender. Neither Britain or the Allies stopped to look at any niceties. They were clear that the moral picture required the complete defeat of those ideologies, and even more important, the reprogramming of entire societies. For nearly a century, the entire Palestinian cause was coddled, indulged by the West and by so many others in the belief that they wanted only limited goals, that they wanted freedom or to end the occupation or to improve conditions in Gaza. Caesars in Britain also thought that Hitler had limited goals. He just wanted to get out of the society. He wanted to bring all ethnic Germans under one rule. It took a long time for Britain and other countries to realize that Hitler's goals were completely annihilationist. There was rational, there was nothing limited. And when Britain understood that, Britain went to total war until victory. And after victory, after the unconditional defeat of Nazi Germany, of Imperial Japan, those societies were reprogrammed to become the peace societies that they are today, prosperous societies. And that's what the Palestinians need to go through. The Palestinians need to go through a complete reprogramming of a century-long ethos that wanted nothing except the complete destruction of the one state of the Jewish people. They need to move away from being a society that destroys to being finally a society that builds.
If you look towards the much nearer future, sadly we know that this war is going to get worse before you can even think of anything getting better. It must be very frightening for everybody at the moment, especially as Prime Minister Netanyahu has sworn, basically, that he wants to flatten at least the north half of Gaza. So we know that the violence is only going to get worse.
The reason that all of this frightening. Even if it were just a war, I mean, even that would be comprehensible. You know, for decades in rallies against Israel, we heard the phrase "Itbach al-Yahud," slaughter the Jews. And so many foreign commentators translate "Itbach" as resist rather than slaughter, and al-Yahud as Israel. To the present day, the BBC will translate Arabs who say al-Yahud as Israelis because they don't want to embarrass Palestinians to be exposed for their anti-Semitism, for the fact that they really want to slaughter the Jews. And what we saw a week ago, that when the defenses of our army are dead, when they are actually given the chance, what they want to do is what they've always said they want to do, slaughter the Jews. And we are now keenly aware that we are surrounded by these, that this is their goal, nothing limited, nothing negotiable. They want to say what they've said they wanted. And as long as we talk in terms of war and violence, it doesn't even begin to capture the understanding that we are surrounded by people who have nothing less than complete annihilation goal in mind. And that is the scary thing, but that is also what we need to fight. When people talk about proportionality, proportionality means that our response has to be proportional to the threat. And the threat is one of annihilation. The threat is one of our slaughter. And that is the threat that we need to remove forever.
How do you, I mean, and as you say, there are problems on all sides. But in relation to the Palestinians, in relation to Gaza, obviously there has, you know, there is this determination from Prime Minister Netanyahu to wipe out Hamas. How do you do that without, you say, reprogramming the sort of Palestinian society, but how do you go through this without just actually turning those innocent civilians against you?
Well, I have some to break to you, and this is the reality that people have been ignoring for a century. That society is against us already. They have been against us for a century, and it has never been about what we did. It was always about what we were. Everyone has always shifted and confused cause and effect in this situation, thinking that the cause of Palestinian violence and brutality and slaughter is Israeli actions. No, the cause has always been our very existence, the fact that we dare be free and proud Jews in this land, the fact that we dare want to govern ourselves. This has always been the cause. And for a century, Palestinian society has mobilized. Now it's Hamas, but it was always various groups, organizations. It is a society, a complete society mobilized to ensure that there's no Jewish state, that there's no free Jews. This is what free Palestine, this is what from the river to the sea means. We need to finally look it in the eye. The entire society has been mobilized for a century to Israel's destruction. This is what they're about, and this is why we need nothing less than the reprogramming. They cannot be any more against us. There are no actions that we can take that they will turn us more against us. The cause of this pain, the cause of this century-long conflict has been that Palestinians and their Arab and Islamic, Soviet and some Western enablers have allowed them to persist in their dream that they can undo Israel, that they can turn the entire area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea into an Arab state. They can make Israel non-existent. And when people, I've been saying this for years, and I've met so many Western diplomats and journalists who couldn't believe it, wanted to say, no, it's just a occupation or the blockade, or they want to improve conditions. Those are rational, limited goals that Westerners have projected on the Palestinians. To the credit of Palestinians, they have made it clear for a century that regardless of what Israel does, regardless of what the Jewish people do, the very existence of free, sovereign Jews on this land is to them an anathema that they must erase by all means necessary. And what Israel has done through existence is to try to make sure that they cannot act on what they said that they will do.
Dr. Wilf, we've got to leave it there. Good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
My goodness.
Thank you.
And we do apologise, by the way, for the sound quality on that link, but clearly it was very important to let her go on speaking to us, but the sound quality was a bit difficult there.